hepsi daha sonra bir kenara konulur.
Now, all that has been said during the campaign, we can put it aside. We can sit down and talk about all of this with Trump. I called Trump the day after he won. He answered the phone and I talked with him. We agreed there's a lot to be done in regard to Turkey-U.S. relations in the future.
Yapacağımız çok şey.
Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan there on the prospect of working with US President-elect Donald Trump. And there's arguably work to be done with Turkey's other partners as well, following this summer's attempted coup. Turkey's response has tested relations with countries concerned about human rights, and it's been bad for business. Growth has been revised down to just 3% this year and will be... The number of foreign visitors is down by nearly a third year to date. But the government says it contributed to a small drop in inflation and expects the economy to pick up. Well, with that in mind, our business correspondent Owen Fairclough talked to Ekim Alptekin, chairman who has along the economic fallout from the attempted coup.
After such a traumatic event, clearly we're still under the effect of sort of the aftermath of this the events on July 15th, but I think we're recovering very quickly.
You have to accept, though, that anybody that was looking perhaps at investing in Turkey would see the events of the last 3 months and just think, no way, I'll put my money elsewhere. That has to be acknowledged.
I empathize with that. What I ask our viewers to empathize with is that, yes, if you see tanks on the streets, it's a terrible image, and that's certainly not what the investors want to see. But the flip side of it is, think about how resilient a country must be if it can overcome that so quickly. And as someone who was on the streets that night, I couldn't reach my home until the next day. I've seen events unfold on the street, and I can tell you that already the next morning, shops were open. People were, of course, traumatized by what happened. I don't think there's any other country in the world where that would be able to so quickly recover from something as traumatic as what we experienced that day.
Is there a sense, though, that Turkey has to almost start again? I can remember 2008, nearly 10 years ago, when European economies were crashing. People were looking at Turkey and saying, look at this fast-growing economy, getting lots of positive headlines as a place to invest. You don't really read that anymore. Now we've had this attempted coup. Isn't there a sense of Turkey having to do all this legwork all over again?
I agree with you. In those years, there was sort of the dream years where year-over-year growth was second only to China. Of course, today, numbers are lower, but they're lower globally. So even China is growing less. So I think if you look at it from a global perspective, Turkey's macroeconomic are still strong.
Turkey could be seen as a confusing place right now. Many people say it will never get into the European Union with a candidacy that's dragged on for 30 years. There are alternatives in Russia and China. If you were talking to a Turkish businessman who's looking to export, wouldn't you say you should be looking east, not west?
Turkish exports in the last decades have risen dramatically. Partly that's because we learned how to trade. Because of the customs union, which was at first difficult for us, we learned how to be a more efficient manufacturer, how to set certain quality standards that are common in Europe. And now that we've reached that point, I believe we will continue to export to the European Union countries as long as they have the economic power to purchase. For us, it's not a matter of being a member or not. That's not the real issue.
It is really the issue. I would put it to you. You can't continue with a relationship where, for example, a businessman who wants to go simply to a trade fair has to apply for a visa or cannot spend more than 3 months at any one time. That's just not realistic for people who want to establish a business, who want to export, who want to really invest in Europe. It's not a solution.
The number of people who apply for a visa and actually get it is in the high 95% in Turkey. So although it's a bureaucratic hassle, it really cannot be seen as a structural obstacle to trade. This also means that there is really no need for the visa process anymore. They can, if there are a few rotten apples, you can filter them out at the border.
But if I were a businessman and you were telling me this, I would be taking from this conversation that the visa liberalization process will never happen and you simply have to find a way around it or continue as things are.
I think that there is enough reasons to liberalize the visas in Turkey. And I believe it will happen eventually. I think Europe will in the end understand that it's a problem for them as well. It's not just us asking for something that is fantastic for us and hurts them. No, it's win-win actually.